Hey folks, Mike Dakkak with you. I want you to head over to marketplace.drstellamd.com. That's marketplace.drstellamd.com. That's where you can find all the health and wellness products you need to make sure you're prepared for whatever comes next. She's got Vax detox bundles, pandemic preparedness kits, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine supplies. You can sign up for a telehealth session and get the care you need from a doctor who's been telling us the truth about health and wellness and COVID from the very beginning. Head on over to marketplace.drstellamd.com. Use promo code ITN as Dr. Stella, who's a friend of the show and a friend to freedom-loving patriots everywhere, has agreed to give ITN viewers a generous discount. Take care of yourselves and your families by going to marketplace.drstellamd.com and getting the supplies you need to remain prepared. Tell them Mike sent you. Gary, sir, thank you so much for taking the time. We were just talking about how members of the media and whatever you want to call it, what do you want to call it, patriot media or truth media or whatever you want to call it these days, people who are outside the mainstream, all we have going for us is the truth. Is that enough?
Mm-hmm. No, I think if you're going to talk about how do you present the truth, how do you package the truth? Well, for example, go to the Gospels. The crowd was big, so Jesus boarded into a boat and pushed off and spoke to the crowds. He went up and spoke on a mountain. The setting of where you're presenting the truth matters. So I think too many people in the social media realm, patriot groups. I mean, look, the intention is awesome. The message is great most of the time. But when you look, you could take really what you sort of consider the best of the best social media world platform of patriot, conservative, pro-life, whatever stuff.
Yep.
And then hold it up against the empire of Satan over there.
Yep.
And I'm talking just visually, just presentation-wise, just the packaging. I'm sorry, our side gets our butts kicked. We just do. There's a bunch of reasons for that. They have all the money. Satan's rich.
Yeah.
Our Lord is rich too, but he's a little more frugal with how he apportions his budget.
Right. Right. Totally.
But they have all this money, and they make sure that the packaging of what they do is inviting.
Yeah.
And by that I mean
the
cameras they use, the lighting they have. Absolutely. Yeah, it's meant to be. I mean, you can do this with churches. If you see a church on one side of the street that's, all beautiful and polished, and the lawn's manicured, and the stairs up there are brass, and it's all polished, and has a brass rail, and it's all polished, and, if there's statues, if you're Catholic, if there's statues and whatever, and they all look white and clean and all that. And then over here, you got one that looks like it just, recovered itself from a fire. Which one are you going to go into?
Right.
I mean, which one's going to be more appealing to you to go into? You might go into this because you have some great theological, insight of some sort or whatever. But, just the human eye is going to go, oh, pretty looking, not pretty looking. You don't generally see, ugly people sitting on the air at the big networks or, CNN or whatever. There are exceptions, of course. My apologies to the Stelter family. It's not your fault. It's just the way the DNA landed. Not a problem.
Zing.
Boom. But my point is, ouch. My point is at the end of it that every single thing is manicured in such a way that there's nothing that obstructs you from going into the message. Doesn't have to necessarily invite you in. It just doesn't have to, present an obstacle to you, like a visual obstacle to you, or even an audio. So there's a reason that they all sort of speak with the same accent, for example. And there's an occasional change here or there, of course, but on general, there's a reason almost none of the male anchors have any facial hair, and anchors, hosts across the board. Every now and then, Wolf Blitzer kind of being an exception to the rule, but he's the exception that sort of proves the rule. Why?
Right.
Well, because nobody looks at somebody on TV and says, "Oh, I'm not watching him. He doesn't have a beard." But some people might be stuck on that guy's facial hair, for example, a beard or mustache or his hairstyle or whatever. And they might be, ooh, and it just becomes a distraction to them. And so as the broadcaster, you don't want your audience being distracted by anything you've got in front of them, because you can control and do control what is in front of them, how it sounds, what it looks, what the camera angles are, all of this. And it matters. Now, they've already spent their time on all this. They're up front. It's all done. They've got their look and they're very successful. Why are they so successful at spreading their propaganda? Because of how they look. There's a number of reasons, but that's one of them. There's nothing you look at on there. And I don't care if it's the broadcast networks, the cable networks, whatever it is. Even when you look at the Washington Post or the New York Times or something, it looks professional. Yeah. And because the look of it has a certain credibility, unconsciously or subconsciously, what's being said also takes on a certain certain credibility. Use the example of a restaurant. Every time you go to a restaurant, if they just like slap your plate down and, there's, some of the sauce is dripping off the side and, the lettuce looks a little wilted and it's just garnish, but it looks a little wilted and all of that. The presentation of a meal matters. Yeah. Not that it has anything to do with the taste. Nothing. Zero. It doesn't affect the taste at all. You can serve the most incredible steak on a piece of cardboard and it's still going to be the most incredible piece of steak. But back here somewhere, you're like, oh, and the makes you pause about what it is you're about to consume. That's true in media. That's true in a restaurant. That's true when you buy a car. It's true with all advertising, all of it. And, they and we are in a advertising, marketing, sales game. It is. I don't mean to say game and treat it, that we're talking about the truths of the universe. I don't mean to, downgrade it and say something weird, but it's in the game of marketing and advertising. What it looks like absolutely matters. So I don't think our side pays attention to those things. I mean, I've watched some of the, podcasts and, all sorts of various things and like, hey, let me check and let me click on this here. And okay. And you see that on the air. And I suppose on one level, there certainly is a allowance for that, right, on the part of the viewers, right? But why are they allowing it? They allow it, the viewers allow it, they accept it, because when they go from here to here, they bring with them an expectation that this is going to be kind of sucky, and I'm just interested in the truth. That's horrible. Really, that's the bar you want to hit from a professional standard, just professional standard. Forget about the content. I'm not talking about the content. If you just turn the volume down, which one would you look at? Which one would you reach for first? If you didn't know about the culture wars and all that, and you're looking at, something here on, I don't know, whatever, MSNBC, and you're looking at something on like typical podcast of like Patriot, conservative, Catholic, whatever. If you're looking at those two and you have no idea about all this stuff, which one are you going to turn up first? It's just that simple. And, they've got great graphics and movements. And, we were talking beforehand that even the speed at which, like at the bottom of your screen right here, this is called a crawl, where you're seeing, patriotsmade.com/ITN. That thing on the bottom is called a crawl. Sometimes it's called a ticker, because everything in TV has like 38 names to confuse you when you get into the business. Like, what is that? Right. The speed at which that goes by, the size of the letters, the color of the letters on the color of the background. In your case, that to me looks like a 3 times crawl, and it's white on orange. It's open sans. It's all that stuff. Those things are all decisions that are made way high up on a marketing level, and they're all focus grouped. All of these groups, all of these networks, Fox, MSNBC, CBS, all of them, if they want to do something with their look, the packaging, they come up with all sorts of looks, and then they take them to focus groups all around the country every few years or so. That's why you'll see a network, whoever it is, sort of change their look after a while. How's the music? What's the introductory music? When you hear that, like on Fox, where that thing spins around and goes, boom, that didn't come out of the sky. They probably ran 20 or 30 types of things like that. And that was the one that the audience either liked the most or objected to the least. That's kind of a low bar. We object to this the least, but not everything can be a home run. So this is what goes on. I'm not suggesting we all need to do that, because it takes a lot of money to do that. I mean, every one of these places spends tens of millions of dollars every year, constantly focus testing their stuff and their personalities. There's a thing in the media called your Q rating. And the Q rating is essentially, do you like this guy or does he suck? That's ultimately it. And, if you cross the suck barrier, badly enough, you don't get re-upped in your contract. Where you might cross over the suck barrier will determine if you get any kind of increase or not. It might be cheaper for them to keep you on because you're not objectionable enough, and they don't want to lay out money to get the guy who's the most, desirable face on camera. Yeah. But my point of all this is that they're testing all of this all the time. They are fine-tuning every last little detail. Why? Because they don't want anything blocking you, the viewer, from getting the full content of what they're saying. That's it. Right down to the color of the women's dresses, the color of their hair, their style of their hair, what makeup they use, what color tie that guy has on, is a shirt, what's this, what's all of it. Every last thing is micromanaged to the last detail. Now, they might be an individual consultant or whoever might be wrong, but they're going on all of these market testing things. What did people say about this? What did people say about that? You're selling something to a consumer. Does the consumer want to buy your stuff more than he wants to buy your competitor's stuff? That's it. That's the law of capitalism, and that's the end of it. So you've got to be better in your consumer's mind, in TV, your viewer's mind, than your competitor. Content, absolutely. But the look, the presentation, absolutely, it matters. And it sets the standard for it. That's why all of those guys, all the networks, CBS, ABC, NBC, and then in the cable, CNN, Fox, MSNBC, all of them. There's a reason they all sort of look alike, because that's what the consumers want. That's what they're used to. It's a good presentation, so therefore I can listen to this. Wise people who are kind of tuned in, like our audience, are, oh, I don't care how good it looks. That sucks. They're serving me poison on a nice table with beautiful silverware. I'm not eating that steak. It's rancid. Well, good for you. Most people, however, are willing to give them a listen because they look good. There's a reason they still command tens of millions of people. Here's a scary number. Here's a very scary number. This is pre-Elon and his billion views of the Trump interview. Okay. But when you go through just the 3 network newscasts, evening news broadcasts, 30 minutes a day, ABC World News Tonight, NBC Nightly News, and CBS Evening News. I used to work for CBS Evening News. When you go through those 3 altogether in just 30 minutes, that's it, just 30 minutes. ABC has 12 million viewers a night. ABC, if I said something different, I meant it was ABC. ABC is the leader in that little war. 12 million viewers. NBC, 9 million viewers. CBS, 7 million viewers. Do your math there. That's 10% of the U.S. population. Wow. In just 30 minutes, a little less, 30 minutes every night, every day of the week. That's a lot. And that's just 30 minutes. When you add up prime time, the entire prime time slot from 7 until 11 for Fox, CNN, and MSNBC, those 3 added together in 4 hours don't get half the number of viewers that the networks get in just 30 minutes. So this idea that, oh, social media is taking over, no, they're replacing the dinosaur, no, dinosaur media is the legacy media and all that, that may come to pass. It hasn't come to pass yet. And yeah, people don't believe and they're trusting the media is in the toilet and all this stuff. I'm sorry. That is still, you know, when the Nazis were retreating and Hitler had a grievance, I'm thinking particularly of Warsaw, when he pulled out and the Russians paused, Stalin paused the attack because he knew that if he did, Hitler would get all ticked off at the resistance, the Polish resistance, and go back in, which is what he did. He had a weapon, a single weapon called Thor. It was a artillery gun, an artillery, beast that each shell weighed 2 tons. So obviously you couldn't load this and shoot it, in every 20 seconds. It took an hour to go from shooting to get it back to shooting another one. But what it did was land a 2-ton, beast on its target and wipe out an entire block. That's what the major media is, except it has the ability to reload and keep doing it and keep doing it. And just go through the media lies that I know, your audience knows are lies. Just, go through them. Have you heard them? Charlottesville. Yep. Trump stood there and said losers and suckers, about the military dead. I can't think of all of them off the top of my head right now, but there's just lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. Biden said 4 of them in his bye-bye speech, and still insists on Charlottesville. So it gets repeated. And this is the point. You need to reach the man in the middle. And yes, that's a very shrinking middle, but because both sides are relatively equal in their numbers, God knoweth how. I don't know who the hell wants to vote for some, woman who following in the guy's steps, it was just as bad, is going to, send your taxes and everything through the roof and just continue to wreck your economy. Why would you vote for this woman? Well, you voted for the guy before her, so I guess, but now you got proof of what it is, and still it's like 46, 44, 46, 47% versus 44, 46, 47%. So the group you're looking for in the middle is pretty narrow. Everybody who's on our side watches our own stuff. We know it. We know the personalities' names. You know it all. Know every bit. There's nothing over here you're not going to know about. You can see there are accounts on Twitter, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million followers. That they put a post. It gets recopied 5,000, 10,000 times. Got it. But who are you talking to? You can't really break out of the right's social media cocoon. It doesn't have the number of outlets. If you don't follow one of these guys, you're probably not going to see something unless somebody you do follow reposts that guy's thing. Yeah. You're just not going to see it. So it's different when you're walking into a bar and there's CNN up on the screen. It used to be the case when CNN was buying the time. They're not now because they lost advertising revenue. But you walk around an airport, it's like, why is CNN on all the time? I go to a couple local gyms here in Houston, and I look up. I'm sick to death. Why is CNN on here? Right. And are there neutral people in a gym? Sure. Are there neutral people sitting at a bar? Sure. So that's why in those great big giant public places multiplied by 20, 50, 70, 200 places, every city in America, bars, airports, public places, wherever those public places may be, every day, that little ticker going across the bottom of the screen there, I can't hear it in a bar, but I look up and I see the written propaganda. It has a multiplying effect. That's the point. And why would I look at it? Because there's nothing on the screen that's objectionable to me. Again, not content, production value. There's nothing on the screen objectionable to me. As a matter of fact, she might look pretty, or he might look like some guy I want to look like. So there's all that kind of aspirational stuff that all the major manufacturers and suppliers. I used to do commercials for General Motors, and they call it aspirational. So the person behind the wheel had to be the kind of person that you wanted to buy your vehicle, or the kind of person behind the wheel that would want that person behind your wheel. So, put the beautiful model behind it or something like that. I mean, there's all of this is just built on fallen human nature. But if you understand human nature and understand that it's fallen, you know what buttons to push. Hello, Satan. So you know what levers to pull to get the result you want. Thank goodness for grace, right? Thank God for grace. Because without it, we'd be swamped. There's no way no human being can resist an angel. The angel is held at bay because of God's grace, not because of us. We're just the recipients and hopefully the cooperators with that grace. But the larger picture here is that when you are setting something up in such a way that you want people to come, and in where the margins are razor thin, you don't have to convince that many people. You have to convince just enough. And that number is small, as we know. I mean, the days of landslide elections, and a landslide election is defined as a 10-point spread. So somebody gets 55% and the opponent gets 45. The spread is 10. That's considered a landslide. Those days are gone. There's not 10% variance anymore. There's probably 5, maybe 5% variance. And, who knows with these. That's why Democrats freak out with the RFK thing. I mean, if he just brings over, I think he was around 5 points nationally. He was higher and lower in different states, but nationally. But in some of the states he goes to, if he's 5, 6, 7 points, and let's say he's at 6 in, I don't know, whatever, Pennsylvania, and 3%, half of his voters say, I can't vote for Trump. I respect his decision, but I can't do it. Okay. Well, the other 3%, they are going to vote for Trump. They're not going to vote for Kamala. They're either going to take his endorsement and go vote that way, or they'll stay at home.
Right.
But there's no advantage whatsoever in that for Harris and the Democrats, the communists. There's no advantage at all. That's why they start pulling their hair out and start blasting him on social media and all of their accounts and everything. So that's a problem for her, but it makes the point that we're talking about 1 or 2% here and there. So if you've got a media message constantly going out, you're watching the late night comedians, forget about the air wars the campaigns run, the PAC organizations run for. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking the regular cultural thing of, Robert De Niro getting up and, cussing out Trump and, not the person, but, Hollywood stars putting things out on YouTube of like, oh, I'll leave the country.
I'm going to move to Canada. Right.
Yeah. All of it. I mean, see ya. Enjoy.
Exactly. Is that a threat or a promise? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem with all of this, that it's the death by 10,000 cuts. Yeah. There is no one giant thing. Now, on the side of the right, the good guys, us with our white hats, I left my white hat alone at home. On our side, the issue is more complex. We don't have the mighty boom we did with something like Elon interviewing Trump on a couple 3 weeks ago. A billion views is a billion views, but that was 3 weeks ago. What do you remember now?
Right.
Probably not much. Again, unless you're a student of this, like you are and I am, and people who sort of do this stuff. But I mean, we are the rare of the 100th of 1% of the people have our heads buried in this stuff all the time because that's what we do. It's not like that for most people. So when Elon Musk makes a comment near the end of the 2 hours and says, I'm voting for Trump because, Kamala's unacceptable and blah, blah. And then he says, yeah, this is sort of the fate of the nation and the balance here. And then he says, very near the end, we've come to a fork in the road of our destiny for Western civilization. I mean, I remember that. So I did a whole presentation on it. But does the average Joe, even the people who watched that, did they stick around? They heard it once. It's powerful. 1 billion people, if they were paying attention and they stuck around for the whole thing, they heard it, but they heard it once. How many times have they heard Trump is a dictator? And it doesn't matter if it came from a not Elon. Yeah, it's 1 million times they have heard that. They said Trump's name from the stage the first night 167 times.
Yes, they did.
Sorry, 147 times.
Yes, they did.
They're constantly on Trump, 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 Trump. You know, they had 4 days there to essentially try to dismantle him. And they're not dismantling him to his base. And Trump is not going to be successful dismantling Kamala's supporters, you know, out of her base. Those people want to kill children. They want, you know, they don't care about anything. They hate Trump because they hate what Trump embodies. It's not him per se. They probably don't like him either as a person, but they could really give a rip about him as a person. It's what he is voicing and supporting, and dismantle the deep state. And this is horrible.
What he's fighting for,
down the
right?
river.
Right.
Yeah, that's what he's fighting for. So that's what they're concerned about. And they can certainly loathe him on a personal level, but if he weren't doing this, they'd be, oh, screw him, and they'd get on with their lives. Now he's the nonstop, gotta vote Trump, 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 Trump. It really is Trump derangement syndrome. It really is. Whoever came up with that, that's a great thing. Yeah. But you know, you hear dictator, 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 oh, it's going to destroy, oh, you know, and what Project 2025, oh, Project 25, Project 25, yeah, and they just never stop. It's impossible if you breathe in that air, which as we move forward now in the remaining just a little more than 2 months of the day we're recording this, just a little more than 2 months, you move forward for these next 60-ish days, and that's all you hear. And then you throw in the air wars and the campaigns and the radio things and the, you know, the major media with their tens of millions of people constantly being bombarded by them over and over and over and over and over again. It has a wearing down effect. Yeah, it really does. Yeah. Trump has to fight, not just Trump especially, because they've come after him with such daggers, but whoever the conservative opponent is has to fight the opposition, as in the other candidate, as well as the entire infrastructure that has been built up around them. You have to attack a city, a fortress, and it's manned by the media, by the universities, by the newspapers, by electronic media,
all the
print media.
Yeah.
Law schools, half the judges in the country. That whole thing is like an impregnable fortress. And one man who's been able to assimilate into himself the hopes and fears and everything of everyone who is opposed to that fortress, been able to that's why they tried to take him out. That's why they tried to take him out. They did everything. They tried to put him in jail, which they still may do. They tried to put him in jail. They tried to lawfare, make him go bankrupt, criminal charges, this, that, the other, destroy his reputation, get everything they could possibly do. When that didn't work, then they shot him. Yeah. Hoping, of course, that would be the end of it. Imagine what would have happened had Trump not leaned like that. That's all he did. He just leaned like that. If he had not leaned like that, he'd be dead. There was no vice presidential candidate named at that point, and the Republican convention started 48 hours later. Right. Biden would still be on the ticket because there would have been no reason to pull a coup and get rid of him. Right. I don't even know. You would have walked out of the Republican convention in complete stun. We'd have Nikki Haley. Canceled the convention. Say it again. We'd have Nikki Haley. Yeah, probably. I mean, who knows? Imagine the war in the midst. You would have had a former presidential funeral that week. Yeah. Would they have? Yeah, I'm sure they would have laid his body in the rotunda, Capitol. Sure they would have. Why wouldn't they? I mean, they hate him. They say all kinds of horrible things about him, but they would have accomplished their mission. So just like when Reagan died, all of a sudden, all the news anchors, I'm thinking of one in particular that I used to work for, Dan Rather at CBS, who hated Reagan's guts. I was at CBS, working at CBS. I covered Campaign 84 for CBS with Reagan and Mondale, that race. Rather hated. He couldn't stand him. When those cameras are off, he did everything except curse his mother's grave. He hated Reagan. Wow. But there he was as a guest on, I think it was CNN, I can't remember, when Reagan had died. And he's like, Nationalists did an awful lot to bring temperance to the government. So I'm thinking to myself, well, shut the hell up, you hypocrite. You hated his guts and you know it. So yeah, that have probably heaped all sorts of praise on Trump, because why not? He's dead. They don't have to deal with it anymore. They got one day here, all of this. So then what would have happened? We have no idea who would have gotten. I mean, you're going to go to the funeral, you're going to go to the convention, you're going to fly back and forth between the two. When's all the negotiating? You got to come out with a nominee, because if there's not a nominee, they can't get on the ballot.
Right.
And you can't say, oh, we need an extra week or two. Sorry, you guys, convention is scheduled here.
Right.
So, it was an act of God that prevented that bullet from striking him in the brain.
Yeah.
Why God prevented that? I think there's one of two ways you can go with that. I think everybody wants to go to there he is, he's saved by God because he's going to be the savior of the country. Well, okay. There's some legitimacy to that. God wants, desires in his active will, not just his passive will, but his active will desires that Trump win. Okay, why that would be the case, I guess we'll have to ask God. However, in the passive will of God, because when theologians and the saints and the mystics and everybody in the whole 2,000 years of Christianity speaks, they always speak of the active and the passive will of God. It is the active will of God when he says, let there be light. When he issues forth a command, it's his direct active will. When he sets up the universe in such a way and his active will imposes natural laws on that universe that now operate on their own under the guidance of his will, his active will brought them into being. His passive will allows them to just now take their course. So you drop a pen, gravity falls. Is it the will of God that the pen drop when you let it go? Yes, but it's his passive will, not his active will. God doesn't make the pen drop. He's set up conditions and circumstances in the universe that are created in such a way that when you let go, the pen will drop. So if it's the active will of God that Trump be spared for, and this is a question, for the, taking the oath of office, January 20th. But what if it was the passive will of God that, Trump just leaned this way? God knew he was going to lean this way. God knew that Thomas Crooks and the others were going to be working on that afternoon, Saturday afternoon. So it was just the passive will of God, 1 in a million. But hey, sometimes 1 in a million things work. People win the lotto all the time. Is that the active will of God that they win the lotto? That John here wins the lottery, the $280 million lottery? Or is it the passive will of God? Because somebody's going to win it. Who knows? We don't know that. There's good arguments to be made for both sides. So the passive will of God just knows that this is all going to happen, and Trump's just going to lean his head. But he's still preserved. So here we are. So if it's the active will of God, and then that God actively wills that Trump win the presidency and take the oath of office, okay, that's one track. You can take that down. But another one is this, and I think it's interesting. The fact that it is now done, it's a done deal, unless they knock him off or some incredibly unforeseen thing happens. It is a situation where you have Trump and everything that stands for, however imperfect. He's wrong on abortion, he's wrong on gay marriage and all this. He's wrong on a lot of stuff. But it comes more from either a lack of understanding, a lack of exposure. It's more ignorance and uncertain and not educated sufficiently on the things that he's wrong on. That's why he's wrong on them. Like, who's been around him telling him this or telling him that, or instructing him in this or instructing him in that.
Right.
However, when you move over here to the other side, this is a direct, willed rejection of natural law. We will kill these children. We know they're babies. I mean, I've been in the pro-life fight long enough to remember back in high school in the 70s, they used to deny that it was human. They wouldn't even say it was a baby.
Yeah.
Just, it's, a blob of cells and it's just, and no, I mean, now science has finally, proved their lie wrong. So now they've shifted again the goalposts and said, well, yes, it's baby. We don't care. That doesn't matter. What matters is the woman. Matters is the woman's right to kill it.
Right.
And nobody's denying anymore that it's a human being. But they did 45 years ago.
Yep.
I was there. Used to go in front of abortion chambers. I went to an abortion doctor when I was in high school in his office in Vallejo, California, which is halfway between San Francisco and Sacramento, just on the tip of Napa Valley. And Buddy and I went into his office to talk about abortion with him. And he performed abortions in there, and he sat us down and with one of those half tables with the stirrups in it. He said, "Yeah, the woman is here. She puts her feet up in the stirrup. There's this little thing. There's this little curette right here. Boom, you wrap it up." And he took out a brown paper lunch bag, like you bring like your lunch for school.
Wow.
So he said, "You just put you put the what did he call it? The product of conceptus." That's what he called it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, product of conceptus. And he said, there's nothing to it. Just put it in, you just put it down there in the trash. That's all it is. This isn't human. And I remember I'm like, yeah, it is. Anyway, he didn't throw us out of the office, but we were challenging him, and he was like, I gotta go. So I've been in this far back, almost right to the introduction of Roe v. Wade into the culture. And I used to go around my high school classes and give talks to all the religion classes. These are the 4 types of abortion. This is what they are. This is what happens. This is when you do it this way. This is when you do it that way. All of it. So I know this whole battle inside and out, upside one side, down the other. And when you are, lost my train of thought, sorry, but when you're in this kind of battle and you're battling the lies of the media, it's a giant hill to climb.
It really is.
And you're not just, it's one thing to convince somebody of something, like you're talking to them and, they either don't have an opinion on it, or they've never thought about it, or they're not committed one way or the other. They're just kind of whatever. Through the force of argument, logical presentation, arguing,
Right.
argument.
Right.
You can convince them of the rightness of this position sometimes, many times, again, if they're a person of goodwill. But once a person has been gotten to and now has been convinced that, position Z is correct, for you to go in there and they adopt it, they bring it into themselves, they make it part of themselves, and this becomes an aspect of their human being, of their identity. For you to go in there and say, that's wrong, by the way, and it's a giant leap. It's a big leap to get somebody to understand something and be convinced of it. It's a gigantic leap to get somebody to admit that what they have taken into themselves and making a part of their own identity is wrong, and they have to get rid of that and abandon it. The first is, trying to climb up a mountain. The second is climbing up a mountain while you're pushing a boulder ahead of you. And it's tough. And they command that boulder. And there are very few people in America who haven't made up their minds about everything that related to all of this, one way or the other. It's a very tiny little margin, There might be some giant cataclysmic thing, a war, nuclear warheads go off in the Middle East or something like that. Whatever it is, something that in the immediate natural order might not be able to be controlled, the reaction to it, and that might affect the outcome of the election. Biden drops dead, 3 days before the election, and that kind of like, there's all sorts of things that can happen, and they do happen. We've got something happen, it seems like about every 48 seconds here for the last 9 months.
Right.
So anything can happen, and certainly this past summer's proved can and does. But how is that message filtered? How is it said? How's it brought about? It really was the egging on of the media that provided the circumstances from which flowed the coup against Biden. They wouldn't shut up. His numbers didn't really change that much.
No, they did not. That's a great point. They didn't really
change. They dropped by like a point-ish. And again, the American voter has a very short memory, and they know it, and they bank on that. So they, meaning the bad guys, they bank on that. We have on our side, kind of an intellectual exposition of ideas and policies and the impact of them, and what will be the case of this and what will be the case of that and what will be the knock-on effect. And, we have kind of a classroom type discussion, because that's what really should be had. Yeah. They, on the other side, have nothing but a distraught, emotional discussion. Right. Joy, we're good. I feel good. I got the great vibe going on. Yeah, look at me, look for me, look at me. I can't dance. I'm emotional. It's like, what the hell does any of that have to do with what's going to happen to your taxes? Do you know, by the way, while you're over there dancing and doing your little break dance moves and everything, you know that the Trump tax cuts are going to expire in 2025, and you're going to go right back up to that 25% tax bracket? Did you know that? Did anybody tell you that while you're doing the middle of your little break dancing thing? Right. No. When they're all on stage there, twerking. Did you find out that when you're talking about giving $25,000 a home, to new home buyers, that in a market economy, which is what we have, all that's going to cause is for the price of homes to go up by $25,000, because it's free money. That's just how it works. The second you start giving money to students, to give to schools, universities, what do the universities do? They jack up their rates, because they don't care if you get stuck with a bill at the end of the thing. It's $230,000. They don't care. They got the $230,000. Screw you. Here's your diploma. That's nice. Let's move on. I mean, when the government is injected into stuff, the stuff starts to fall apart. And then when you throw in all of these social, and that's just in a market analysis. When you throw all this other crap on top of it, the DEI stuff and all the woke crap and everything else, and now it's mandated, you got to wear a mask, you got to get a shot, our patience is wearing thin, all of that sort of stuff. I mean, that turns the government into more than just a big obstacle to try to get around to live your daily economic life. That turns the government into a machine of tyranny. And now what do you do with that? Is that all being said by anybody except the folks over on our side? No, it's not. How do you get the message to the man in the middle? I would posit to you on this that these debates, or at the moment, this debate, singular, ABC News just came out today and said, no, we're not going to do anything that Kamala wants us to do. We're not going to leave the mics on. We're not going to do this sitting down at a table. I don't know why she wanted that one in particular. Maybe just because Trump would look tall next to her. I don't know. I don't know what the sitting at a table was about. But importantly, she wanted notes. Yes. No, you don't get to have notes.
She wanted cheat sheets.
In the United States. What the hell? What?
Sit down and study.
So China launches a strike against Taiwan at like 3 a.m. And you're President Kamala, and you wake up, you're woken up. We have a nuclear thing going on over on the other side of the world. Oh, get me my notes.
Get me my notes. What?
Right. Grab me my notes, please. No such thing exists. So I hope Trump drives these way. He has to like get off the gas pedal, because he'll be called either a bigot or a racist, a misogynist or a racist, or both. And he's going to get called that anyway, but he has to be aware of that. You can't have people like pointing the finger at you, because that'll just turn into a thing. Oh, did you see how he treated that woman? Or, oh, did you see how he treated that black? Oh, that's awful. See, that just proves he's prejudiced. And they'll never talk about anything about what he talked about, what the substance of the debate was. So our side has the substance with poor presentation. Their side has nothing but just fantastic. Actually, it's got evil, but fantastic presentation. And because of the mindset of most of the culture, which has been created by this side, you got about half of Americans are willing to be fine with $3, $4, $5 gas, not able to afford groceries, all of that stuff.
Because CNN tells us it's okay.
We're all full of joy. Yeah, right. Exactly. Look at all the rappers. Look at them up there twerking. I'm voting for her. I'm voting for you, sister.
Right.
What?
Right.
Honestly, I have to tell you, if that's how this goes down, then this country deserves everything it gets.
Well, I mean, it's hard to argue with that. It seems to me that the most important thing to them is, as you said, maintaining a stranglehold on authority and being authoritative. Yep. So that people will automatically turn to them. the truth is whatever they define it as. That's what they're after. That's what they're after. And it's all, you know, if you can sum up their platform in a word, it's deception. That's what it's all about. It's about deceiving you.
That was a story I did today.
Into thinking that your destruction is good for you. Hey, isn't this great? The country
exactly correct.
Tubes. That's awesome. Let's be joyful.
Look, they already ran a dry rehearsal of this with COVID.
Right. Exactly right. And it just, you know, it makes you shudder to think what they're going to pull out on us this fall. I know we're coming up on a hard.
Hard stop. Sorry, but I was just going to say, Harris cannot win. She simply cannot be allowed to win. And that is not some like weird dog whistle to go kill her or something. It'd be ridiculous. I'm saying it cannot come to pass that she wins, because if it does, it's not the end of the world. All the folks on the religious folks on our side versus a large number, oh, it's the end of the world, oh, it's the end times. You don't know that. Jesus said, mind your own business. When the apostles asked him, you know, oh, when's all this going to happen? Jesus essentially told them, shut up, get on with what I've told you to do. Don't question what is for the Father to know. It's not for you to know the times or the seasons. We don't have secret codes in the Bible. That's not why it was written. We don't have secret codes in the Bible to tell us when the end of the world is. But it will be the end of an age, and many ages in human history have come, enjoyed, and gone. And almost every one of them, as Abraham Lincoln said, have died by suicide. And here we are. So is it the will of God that we continue and be given one more chance to turn things around? Sure hope so. Or is it the will of God to set before us Trump and all that goes along with that, or Kamala and all that goes along with that? And I would say it's life and death. Choose life, therefore, that you may live. Just could be God's passive will. You know, God does not favor nations if they don't favor him. And I think you might be able to make a case that, you know, as a nation, we've rejected him. But there are many followers of his who claim to be his followers and are only partial followers or not really followers at all. That's a problem. So if Trump wins, that isn't a win. That is just the holding them at bay. And now starts the hard work. Think this was hard. Think the next 2 months is going to be hard. First of all, you got to get if he wins, you got to get from election day to inauguration day. That's 10 weeks for the Democrats to cause hell on earth.
Right.
And all the Soros money pouring in and all of that. It's one thing to win the election, and you got to have it, you know, certified on January 6th, and then you got to take the oath on January 20th. There's a lot of things along the way there that could go wrong. But if all of that happens and he takes the oath and there he is, that is just the beginning of having to turn around so much institutionalized evil we have here. And I believe RFK is spot on. You have got to start with the children, all of it. The pornography in the schools, the horrible nutrition, the disregard for their life. And so, you know, see, somebody's got to RFK and say, dude, all of those, check. And by the way, killing him in the womb, you should add that to your list too.
Right. You know, it's a good episode when you spend the entire episode talking and you've barely touched any of the questions that you had prepared. So I want to thank you, Gary, for coming on. We're definitely going to have you back.
It's always bad luck for the host if you have an Irishman on. I got to tell you, we just don't know how to shut up.
We're definitely going to have you back on if you have the time. But before we let you go, please tell the folks where they can track you down and where they can find you.
I am part of an organization here in Houston, Texas, soulsandliberty.com, 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 because I say it 3 times because it's focus group, and that's what I tell you to do. Soulsandliberty.com, sneaks in another one. We're right here. It's a group of like-minded folks who understand the relationship between the culture, meaning specifically politically, because that's the season we're in right now, and spirituality, religion, theology. These two all come together. And lots of people are surprised to know that when you talk about culture, its root word is cult, which is a complete and total reference to religion. Cultures come from religion.
Awesome stuff, Gary. Thank you very much for coming by, and we hope to see you real soon.
Thank you very much for having me on. Absolutely. Thank you very much, and God bless you for your work, and God bless your viewers.
God bless you, sir.